look at you with a newer phone than me.
Yeah, but I haven't even set it up yet.
It's very much like you.
Yeah. I got it, 2 days ago? Yesterday?
It came in yesterday.
Yeah. And you want to set it up immediately.
That's what you do when you get a phone.
Yeah, I know.
You still
get
haven't
to it.
backed it up.
I know, I haven't. I know. And my current phone is really on its last leg, so.
I realized because like the true boomer that you are, sorry, moms. We complain about, I wouldn't say complain, but we poke fun of our moms for being not technology
savvy.
Yeah, technologically savvy.
Right.
And I had to order the phone for you.
Well, you didn't have to. You just.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did. And I realized I was trading in your phone for an iPhone 13. The phone that we sent in is an iPhone 8.
Yeah. Hence the need for the upgrade.
That's 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Jesus.
It doesn't feel like I've had it for that long.
It's 5 years.
I know. It doesn't feel like it.
Actually, I don't think you did. I think you're right. I think you've only had it for like 2.5.
Yeah, do they really come out with a new iPhone every year?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I think so.
Yeah, but I probably bought an 8 when they were on like
it was probably
the
for
11.
free. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad phone. It is now.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'm a boomer. That's the bottom line.
And I'm also Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
Hey, so the Bills are awesome.
Yeah,
that was the
exciting.
highlight of my weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Them
and now we do it all over again.
Piss out of the Patriots. That made me so happy.
Yeah, that was a special kind of satisfaction for you beyond the Bills winning.
I remember watching the game with you, and to be clear, if you've listened to the show, you should know that I am a huge Bills fan. I've made that perfectly clear on the show. So shout out to the Mafia. But living in enemy territory, I said to you, before the playoffs were set, I said they will probably either face the Chargers or the Patriots. And you said, who do you think they can beat out of those two? And I said the Patriots. And you said, okay, so you want them to face the Patriots. I said, no, I don't. I don't, because if they lose, I'll never hear the end of it.
Right.
And it was just so satisfying watching them beat the shit out of them and seeing Patriots fans just shook and just getting dragged. It was great. And I remember when the Bills went up 14-0, I said, that's game. And you said, they're the Patriots. I said, they're not Tom Brady.
But as soon as that came out of my mouth, I remember. I followed it with, but they don't have Tom Brady.
It's not Tom Brady.
Right.
Fucking McCorkle Jones. That's his name.
Oh, really?
That's his middle
I didn't
name.
know that.
I think it's Michael McCorkle Jones.
Oh.
Fucking, oh God, I cannot stand that team. Michael McCorkle Mac Jones. Little bitch. Speaking of, today we're going to talk about compassion fatigue.
Right. I was just thinking too, this is like a segue that was meant to be.
I do not have compassion for these people.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, so I think today's topic is one that we should right up front give the disclaimer that we don't know a lot about. And that's kind of why we want... Okay.
No, I don't want to say that we don't know a lot about it. It's just, I feel like we give these disclaimers when we talk about things that, like, we're not experts. We're not experts in the field.
Right. No, I think I just wanted to say that because when I was looking into it, a lot of the things I found were very, there's it's like a whole field of study in psychology. It's not just like it's a thing. It's something you could be diagnosed with. It's something that people spend their whole careers working on addressing this issue. And when we started talking about maybe covering this as a topic, we thought it was something different. We had our own definition in mind.
So we watched the video on it, but from what I have researched, it is sort of on the lines of what we thought it was.
Sure. I think there's a my interpretation is that there's sort of a spectrum, right?
So,
but when it's used, like the term itself, compassion fatigue, I think is is most often used in the psychology world to describe the specific issue that is common amongst people in a professional caregiving
yes
role.
yes
But it can also apply to people not in a professional caregiving role who feel a similar feeling just from being a caregiver in some other form in their life.
Yes. So this has become a buzzword because of the amount of people heading into the hospitals that are unvaccinated and basically either going through severe complications of the virus or dying. And the buzzword came about that, because doctors and nurses, some, I'm sure a lot, I don't even think it's a hot take if I say most, are just fed up, pretty much.
They're burnt out.
Yeah, it's not just being burnt out because they're tired and the long man hours. It's the compassion component is because you're right. They're physically burnt out, because they're working.
I mean emotionally too.
Emotionally, they're tapped out because I think it's in their minds, and I don't want to speak for them. This is just the sense that I've gotten doing the research about what's happening and some of the firsthand accounts. I don't want to speak for everyone, and obviously the articles that I read don't, it's not a blanket. Their feelings on it are, it's hard to feel compassion and feel bad for someone that basically brought this upon themselves.
Yeah. Right. I mean, ultimately, if we're talking specifically about the situation with COVID and the choice that people are making not to get vaccinated, yes, they made that choice. And I've also heard, many accounts of patients who are asking for the vaccine when it's too late, like they're about to go on the vent. And I think the only thing in the back of my mind that's coming up is, yes, they made the choice not to get vaccinated. And I am also, I think, experiencing some compassion fatigue for like not feeling bad for people who are making that choice, especially at this point in the pandemic. I think we should remember that there's also a lot of other factors at play, like the incredible amount of misinformation and we talked about this, like the way that it targets people and how people are being fed misinformation that's making them think that in their mind, they think they're doing the right thing by not getting vaccinated.
It really depends on what age group you fall into.
It's true. And yeah, that's not true for everybody, but I think there are some situations where I just am trying to remember that in their mind, they really believe that they're doing what's right.
I think so. But at the same time, so I don't have that compassion fatigue for people that simply aren't getting vaccinated. And that's sort of what it sounded like you were saying. I don't have that compassion fatigue. The only time I do have a sense of it is when shit happens. That's when I'm like, well, bro, you fucked up. If someone just simply makes the choice not to get vaccinated, I don't care. And it's not like I don't give a fuck. It's more like okay, man, that's whatever you want to do at this point. Like, there's no changing your mind about this.
Yeah, no, see, that I think that is a situation where I am experiencing compassion fatigue because I'm like, because that is the situation that is causing the pandemic to still be happening right now. Like,
okay,
people
so
being
it does
apathetic.
Bother you.
It does. Don't get me wrong. It does bother me.
That doesn't seem like what's happening here, though. That doesn't seem what compassion fatigue is. Compassion fatigue, from my understanding, it's a complete apathy.
Oh, you start to get numb.
Yeah,
Right.
You're not numb.
I think there are times when I feel that way.
Okay.
There are times when I feel like just I'm done. Like I don't have the energy to care anymore. But on the days when I do have the energy, it really pisses me off because I feel like people being apathetic to ending the pandemic, like doing what they have to do, getting vaccinated, and staying home when there's a surge and trying to do their part to not spread the virus.
You
even
mean
if
empathetic?
Huh?
People that
that are like they're like they don't. People who are not afraid of the vaccine
Got it.
or anything
Okay.
like that, but they're just not getting vaccinated because they think personally it's not, if they get COVID, they're going to be okay,
gonna be
and they're
all
just going to
right,
have a
right.
sniffle.
Yes.
Like that pisses me off.
I mean, but that's more than likely true.
It
for
is
them.
Correct, but like those are the people who are causing us to still be in a pandemic,
Right.
because those are the people who get infected, and every time a person gets infected, there's a chance for a mutation, and that's what we're seeing with all the variants, and eventually there's going to be, well,
We hope.
right,
not.
there may be variants that our vaccines are less and less effective against, and then other people will be affected by that decision. It's not a decision that's made in a
Right.
vacuum.
I don't want to just squarely focus on COVID
Right.
because
Well, that's what
I know
spurred
this
this
is
topic.
Yes, I
Yeah.
get it. But there are a lot of other areas in which we can explore into this, and some a little bit more controversial than others. But we can talk about sort of, I don't want to say innocent ones, but more innocuous ones. For instance, I don't. Again, when we're talking about caretakers, maybe they have felt this way about these types of patients. But you would figure outside of a pandemic, outside of a pandemic, smokers would fall into this category. And to me, that's one of the most, especially now with the information that we have about it, and measurable information. I don't think anybody alive thinks smoking is good for you.
Right.
Even
Or that it's even neutral. It's bad for you.
Everyone knows it's bad for you.
Right.
At this point, if people are, I mean, maybe because it is addictive,
Right.
that there's some sense of compassion. But in my mind, I'm just like, you made that choice.
So here's where I feel like we're mushing up the definition of compassion fatigue. Like I get the sense that it's more of like you get tired of caring for people because you're their caregiver. Like you're talking about, I just don't feel bad for people who are making their own choices and like self-destructing.
So from the definition just straight out of Wikipedia, and I know it's cliche as fuck. Compassion fatigue is a condition characterized by emotional and physical exhaustion leading to a diminished ability to empathize or feel compassion for others.
Okay.
Often described as a negative cost of caring. So it's not always at the cost of caring.
Right.
But I'm saying if we want to, mesh those two definitions or mesh those two scenarios, I've never heard of, maybe it has happened and we're just unaware of it, doctors or nurses or whatever that care for people that are constantly coming in with lung cancer because of smoking, getting tapped out with the compassion.
Sure. What I'm saying is I think it can happen even in a situation where it's not someone who sort of like, quote unquote, brought it upon themselves. Like it can just be because you're constantly working with people who have experienced trauma or who are like terminally ill to no fault of their own. Like,
I get it. So they're kind of desensitized to feeling sorrow for people.
It's
kind of like when a cop sees a bunch of dead bodies, they could become desensitized.
Maybe. I don't even know if it's that. I think they just they take on other people's trauma to the point where it's one of the talks I listened to was talking about how it kind of mirrors PTSD in a way. Like they start to become emotionally drained and traumatized vicariously through the people that they're caring for, that they just start to like go into a zombie state, like burn out, and then eventually have this extreme form of fatigue.
I think it's both. I think on a societal level, it's what we're maybe even experiencing, or what I'm mostly characterizing in a professional way. And obviously there are some real world situations where you're caring for a parent that has, I don't know, Alzheimer's or something, or
even the most simple sort of like basic level of something that's really common is just being a parent, because you're constantly caring. There's other people who are completely dependent on you,
right?
And you can get lost in that and forget to care about yourself.
See, I don't know if that's compassion fatigue.
I think it is.
I think that's just getting burnt out. What is the difference?
Right. I think they're very closely related. There was one video that I was watching that was like focused on differentiating between those two things but again, that's in a professional. This was like a psychologist. Like, for psychologists, these are the two different things that you may experience by being a therapist and hearing so many people talk about their trauma all day, every day. You may get burnt out. You may experience compassion fatigue. And they're very, very similar. I don't even think I can articulate the difference.
Yeah, I think when it comes to being a parent or something personal for you, when you are the hands-on caretaker for that or those specific individuals, sort of the same individuals, and you sort of avoid self-care, I'm sure there is an element of compassion fatigue in that cocktail, but I think it's mostly you're just burning it on both ends.
Yeah.
Whereas in the professional world, nurses, doctors, they see the same pattern over and over again with different
and it's
people.
Trauma. It's not just taking care of someone's day-to-day needs. They're taking care of people who are
dying.
Right.
And it's just specifically with situations that could have been avoided. I think that's a key component in this.
I think that adds a level of severity to it, for sure.
Modern, what's going on right now. I mean, this whole concept is modern. It was coined in 1992, but in terms of what we're experiencing right now, I think that is the root cause of compassion fatigue. Is you didn't have to do this. You don't have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have to be here.
Right.
Here being the emergency room. Another example in which I don't know. I think I feel more compassion for these individuals, and I don't know if they necessarily fall into this blanket because we're talking about caretakers. We could talk about drug addicts too. I think there's far more circumstances that are contributing to that addiction that are, circumstantial, not to be redundant, but, environmental in terms of their upbringing, reasons, depression, undiagnosed mental illness or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's hard to have compassion fatigue for those types of individuals because chances are you were raised or you were put up in an environment or you were surrounded by people.
I still don't think you're using compassion fatigue correctly.
Okay.
Because if you're saying compassion, like, it's hard for me to...
I'm talking about caregivers that care for those types of individuals.
Right, but like saying that you end up with compassion fatigue doesn't mean that you no longer can have compassion for the person because of the choices they made. Like, that's not what it is.
We're doing that right now with the COVID vaccine.
Yes, that's one example. But I think what I'm saying is what I found, because I thought it was that too when we first started talking about it. But the more I looked into it, the more I kept seeing this pattern of it just being like, you just start to shut down because not because you've stopped caring or because you put blame on the person that you're caring for or whatever. It's that you just are literally like taking on their trauma and taking their burden and putting it in your lap, and it causes you to just not be able to function anymore.
That's not what the definition says that I'm looking at. It says a
From
diminished
good old Wikipedia.
It's sourced. A diminished ability to empathize or feel compassion for others.
Yes, over time, but I'm saying I think the cause of it is not just because because you're consciously like, you did this to yourself, buddy. Like, I just can't care about it anymore, or like because someone repeatedly makes the same mistake over and over again, and you get sick of it. I think it can also just be because, again, like that example of a doctor who's caring for terminally ill patients, or a therapist who's working day in and day out with people who have experienced severe trauma. It's like just a secondary experience of PTSD where you just end up shutting down, not because you stop. You just like can't care about the person anymore. My point is that I don't think it's like a conscious decision where you're like, I can't have compassion for you anymore because of the choices that you've made.
I think that
because it
falls into it.
I think it falls into it. I'm saying I don't want to pigeonhole it into that because it's much bigger than that. And
you want to focus on how it sort of shuts you down completely and makes you not just unable to empathize with other people, but also creates a sort of, I don't know, a situation where you stop caring about everything.
Yes.
Including yourself.
Right. And I think my point was just that it's not an intentional or conscious decision that like, I can't care about you because you made poor choices. Like, I think it's more subconscious than that.
Yeah. Well, then, obviously then the solution and this, I'm not trying to simplify it, is if you were to hear that, you would, the first thing I think someone would advise, and again, I'm not a therapist, I don't know, is you need to remove yourself in that environment. But you can't do that if it's your work.
No, that's not true. There was one in particular of a doctor or a therapist that I was listening to her discussions about it, and she was like, I took a year off. I couldn't.
During this?
I don't know when it was. I don't remember.
That's
the
what I'm
date,
saying. I'm saying today it's there's a notion of all hands on deck.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. I think but I also think that's probably contributing to mental health professionals feeling overwhelmed themselves because there's so many people seeking help right now during the pandemic. So it's definitely tough. But I think that is probably the primary solution for when I feel like when you get to that point, and again, never worked in mental health, so I don't really know how it feels, but I can imagine if I was in that situation, how helpful can I be to my clients or my patients at that point? Like if you're burnt out to the point of feeling this compassion fatigue and feeling numb and having very little ability to empathize with people anymore because you just can't anymore. Like there's just a complete wall there.
I mean, I feel like then you'd become very analytical and straightforward. That might be beneficial. And I'm not trying to make light of a situation.
I don't think so. I think the ability to empathize is critical for someone who works in mental health.
For sure. I'm not saying it's not important, but at that point you might be so, especially if you're an expert in the field and you've been doing it for decades, you can just sort of streamline it and, sort of make it a linear type of.
Maybe that could work for certain people or certain patients or certain situations, but I think overall, I think that I can imagine that I wouldn't be very effective without the ability to empathize.
Legitimate question. And I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but I do remember when we were talking, I forget which episode it was, but I said something along the lines of, right now, given the state of the pandemic and people going through mental health issues and, trying to parcel them out. Right now, again, not making light, but financially, it's probably a good time to be a therapist because everyone's booked, right? So it's a good profession to be in right now because you're in demand, put it that way.
Well, it's good for your financial well-being,
but
it might be harming your
yes,
your own mental well-being.
Like this is it's ripe right now, that environment. Right?
Sure.
If you were graduating in psychology or therapy or whatever, chances are you'd probably have a job,
right,
and have a shit ton of clients. And I'm not trying to make it is a serious
thing.
You're
not making light of it. I understand what you're
saying. So I think given that, that's a little different than nurses, because nurses, you're not getting paid by the patient, right? You're not getting paid by how many patients come in. And you're just getting a flat fucking rate.
Right.
And you come in.
Despite what some bullshit memes might tell you on social media about doctors.
Well, no,
getting
those are the
kickbacks.
doctors. I'm talking nurses.
Sorry.
No,
yeah.
I'm kidding.
Oh, you don't think they get a cut?
No. No, they're not like the waiters. Like
tip them
some
out.
Of the tips. But I feel like mental health professionals, I think they are paid by the patient, like individual patients. That's where the revenue comes in, right? So it's not, especially if you have your own practice,
right?
You're not
I don't
paying
know.
yourself a salary.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works if you're an independent clinician or if you work for.
If you work for the state, chances are you're probably getting.
Yeah, but even if you work for a group, I don't know how that works because it's right. I mean, and it goes through health insurance, and you pay a copay just like you pay a copay when you go to the doctor. So I don't really know how that works.
So assuming you have your own practice, again, it's probably not a good consolation prize, but at least there's that, right? At least you can say, I'm making good money, right? And I'm supporting myself.
And I'm helping a lot of people.
And I'm supporting my family. So whereas if you're a nurse, it'd be like, I've dealt with 3,000 people today, and I'm still walking home with the same fucking paycheck, and it's pennies.
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, it would have been 30.
Right.
Now, obviously, I'm exaggerating the numbers, but, that's got to factor into this, too.
Yeah. And being on the receiving end of all the mistrust and anger that people, of people not trusting the science, not trusting doctors, not trusting the advice of public health officials, and experts in immunology and epidemiology and all these people who have been warning us and screaming from the rooftops about a variant like Omicron coming around eventually, and us ending up back in this situation.
This is not even my final form.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine what a slap in the face it is to then be, tasked with caring for some of those.
So what do you do? What do you do if you can't remove yourself from the situation? What do you do if you're a nurse, for instance, and you're a nurse during the pandemic and you have a family? You can't fucking bounce because that's what you devoted your life to, right? So it's not like you can quit and go to another hospital and be like, all right, this is way better.
Right.
It's all the same anywhere you go. So what do you do?
Yeah, I have no idea. Okay.
I've seen some articles saying, and it's when I read shit like this, I don't know enough about it, but I immediately feel like it's a meme. It's like those colleges that they had their own safe space room, their grieving room or whatever it was. It was, never heard this? There was college campuses during the protests that had their safe space rooms or whatever.
No, I haven't heard.
Yeah, that you could, if you're a college student and you were feeling down, you can go in there and, sort of be in your safe space.
Was it?
I don't know if it was called the safe space. I don't know. It was just,
like a community
it became
room?
a meme. That's
okay.
Some hospitals are developing compassion fatigue rooms. And
where they can just take a break.
I don't know what it is. I feel like, then what's a break room? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference clearly between if they're developing compassion fatigue rooms compared to break rooms.
Well, I wonder if in the compassion fatigue room there's
like couches,
mental health professionals,
they
or
play Yanni, or I'm just kidding.
I mean, I don't really think that this is that funny. I feel like that's
I'm just trying to make light of the situation.
I understand, but I think the difference, a break room is like where you go and you shoot the shit and chit chat. Maybe not in a hospital in the middle of a pandemic, like
yeah, you can't do that.
I mean, it's not like a designated space for you to like take a mental health break, to go to a quiet space that has whatever, like tea or relaxing music where you can just go and like turn your brain off for a few minutes.
This is in Memphis. They develop a compassion fatigue room. St. Francis Hospital, Bartlett is working on identifying signs of compassion fatigue in their employees and help them if they are struggling, which is great. They created here we go. They created a room with a massage chair and other small comforts for staff who need a break. So yes,
it's self-care. It's trying to give you a few minutes to try to focus on you and take care of yourself.
You go in and the patient is fine 1 minute, and 15 minutes later you respond and they're in respiratory distress. That's a quote.
So they're talking about the trauma.
Yeah, this is what they're going through.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but when I read this, I'm just like, it's so cliche. The compassion fatigue room also includes mood lighting and inspirational quotes. To me, I'm just like, yeah, maybe that's what you need. But when I see those types of posters on the wall, it's just, now it's a meme.
Yeah, but I think the lighting, when you think about a hospital.
Yes, that matters.
Yes. Taking a break from the stark white fluorescent lights in a hospital, I think it can change your mood.
I just think this
quite
is
a bit.
The bare minimum. That's why I'm not trying to poke fun of it. It's a good step forward, but to me, this is just, it's a meme.
Right, but what else can they do? Like you said, it's not if really what they need, if the nurses need to take a break, like 6 months off, if that's really what they need to reset and be in a good mental state, but that's not an option right now because of the pandemic, what else do they do? Like, I feel like, yeah, this might seem a little cliche and meme-ish, but like,
no, you're right.
What else?
Short of a drastic measure.
Right.
So based on the Hippocratic Oath, they can't do what I think they should do, which is prioritize those that are vaccinated first and make those that are unvaccinated wait in terms of who gets a bed first. If you're limited on beds, limited on resources, limited on rooms, you prioritize. And
even for non-COVID patients? You
Yeah.
mean like you show up at the hospital with a broken arm?
Well, usually they're in separate wards, right? They're in
Right,
separate
but
wings,
the
right?
hospitals are at their limit for all things, not just COVID. Like people are saying you go to the emergency room and you're waiting hours. It happened to me when I went to the emergency room after
Preeclampsia.
Yeah, with the preeclampsia. That first night, I was in there with blood pressure of, what was it, 160 something over 90 something, and I waited there for almost 4 hours.
And this was before Omicron.
Yeah, this was in September.
No,
October.
It was in October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't
remember,
know. Again,
remember I told you about the couple who showed up with their baby
Kid.
who was having an allergic reaction. They had gone to Boston or Hasbro Children's Hospital, and they
Yeah.
couldn't take them. They turned away a baby having an allergic reaction to peanut butter for the first time, and they ended up at the Women and Infants Hospital, and they also waited for quite some time.
I don't know. Because in my mind, you can't blanket that, right? Because some children.
Oh no,
are
I'm not
unvaccinated.
talking about. Sorry, that's not what I meant to say. I'm just pointing out that there's
There are other things.
the
besides
access to
COVID.
healthcare is limited for everyone right now, whether or not you're going to access healthcare for COVID or something completely unrelated.
I would say if you're not going to an emergency room if you don't have an emergency, right? So someone that has strep throat isn't going to the emergency room. If you do,
Well, they shouldn't be, but there are people who are doing that because they think they have COVID.
Okay, fine, fair.
No, it's not fair. If you just have a sore throat, you should stay
take a
home.
test. No, you take a test. You got to get tested.
Right, or call your primary care doctor. And
Sure.
But most people can recover at home.
I guess what we're going on this tangent, or at least I am, saying the in my personal opinion, the way to remedy this situation is if you are eligible for a vaccine and you're going to the hospital because you are having severe COVID symptoms, you are fucking last in line. And that includes people that are in front of you, even if they're unvaccinated and they have a broken arm, you first, buddy. You have to wait. You going through these COVID symptoms and you're unvaccinated, sit your ass down. You wait. That's what I would do.
I mean, you say that until you're like interacting with the person and they're like,
I wouldn't even get there. I would say
someone is interacting with the person to
you
tell
get
them.
the coldest fucking receptionist you know, and there
Oh
are
my God.
millions. There are fucking millions. I interacted with more than enough people that do not give a fuck about you behind a desk, and you find those people, and they don't even look up. You know exactly what I'm talking
I know
about.
what you
This
mean,
happens
but I
all
think
the time.
But you haven't been unable to breathe and begging for help and looking for
You
someone
didn't
to
have
help
to be
you.
here.
I get it. I know it's extremely frustrating, but I'm saying as healthcare workers, like you said, with the Hippocratic Oath, they are not going to turn that person away.
I know. It's unreasonable what I'm asking. I
Right.
get it.
It's unrealistic.
can't.
I understand in theory what you're saying, and that principle does resonate with me. Like I because of situations like I just said, because that decision for them not to get vaccinated didn't just affect them to be in a situation where now they have to go to the emergency room. It also affected people like me who had to wait 4 hours and could have had a seizure in the waiting room, or that baby who could have died from anaphylactic shock from their exposure to peanut butter for the first time, who couldn't be seen in a timely manner. Like the hospitals being flooded affects everyone.
Yeah. So that is going back to how do we remedy the situation to sort of make these people not experience compassion fatigue outside of just creating a room. Again, it's a good first step, but to me, I'm completely dissatisfied with that. Maybe it helps them. Maybe they're all about it.
I think it's better than nothing.
Of course it is. But that doesn't mean better than nothing doesn't mean great.
I
You
totally
know, doesn't
agree.
mean it solves the problem.
Yep.
I don't know. I just think that this is a good first step. I am not in the healthcare profession, so I don't know what the answer is. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with what our gut instinct is, which is remove yourself from that environment.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's difficult to do that. So maybe mandatory, non-negotiable half-hour, 45-minute breaks in that room. Like, you cannot fucking call me in for a patient for 45 minutes. You can't.
Yeah, but what happens if a patient is dying and you're the only nurse?
What if you're on lunch? What if you're out?
There's no
what if
such
you're
thing.
picking up? Yes, there is. What if you're downstairs in the cafeteria?
Then you run up to the patient's room who's
this
coding.
Is why every person on earth should be hourly. This is why. Because nope, I'm on break.
No,
I am not
that
getting
does
paid
not
right
happen in a hospital in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh,
That's
I know.
not a thing.
Say it would be. It'd be great because then they get overtime,
Oh my God.
and then their vacation hours creep up. That's what's great about hourly. I digress. I mean, I think what we're describing when it comes to compassion fatigue, I think we're discussing and focusing on two different sides of it, but I do think they both fall under the umbrella of compassion fatigue.
Right. Like I said, I think it's a spectrum. I think that you can feel it even from, like if you have, not just if you have a family member who has like a physical disability or, an elderly parent that moves in with you or something like that. But even if you just have family who has certain struggles of their own and they're like constantly telling you about their traumas and everything, or you have friends who do that, I think that it can have the same impact.
I mean, maybe, and we can wrap it up before the break here, but maybe I fell into this, ever since my dad died, when people talk to me about, and I feel bad that I feel this way, but, my dad's having health issues. I'm like, buddy, you have no idea. I'm just like, nope. Like, I feel for you, but nope, you don't know.
Well, yeah, I feel like, maybe you just feel you're experiencing compassion fatigue to the point where you just like, you can't hear about it from someone else because you reached your limit in dealing with it in your own situation.
In my mind, I'm like, you have not seen anything yet.
Right. But and I think that's exactly what you're describing, is that you can't take on that person's a trauma or concern, or that's the definition of starting to lose your ability to empathize.
No, because I feel for the person. I'm just, because there's a small part of me that's like, I don't want you to feel this way, dude.
Of course not. I just mean, like, I think your immediate reaction is just to throw a wall up because you can't take any more of that type of thing happening to you.
Right, but if I hear someone that had a sibling or a parent die, I've reached out to those people and be
right.
You want to know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah. But I think, imagine if you were doing that in a professional capacity every single day with like 20 people a day.
Yeah, I don't think I could.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I mean, it would definitely make it easier, right? Like, I would probably become, it's like seeing the dead body over and over again. You're just like, I don't feel sad anymore. I don't feel bad about it anymore because it's all the time.
Yeah.
Imagine seeing murder every day, like the result of murder every day, being like a crime scene investigator. You're just like, another fucking mutilated body.
No, I don't think I could do that. I think I would not be able to be in that profession.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Because I wouldn't be able to let it go. Like, even now, after becoming a parent, I cannot, when I hear about people like losing their children, like in a car accident or something, and you hear that like a teenager died in a car accident or blah, blah, or I hear stories about infant loss and stuff, like it like crushes me.
Yeah.
Crushes me. And I can't stop thinking about those things, for those specific stories or specific instances, for a really long time.
Because you're connected. I'm saying if you're, because you bring it back to you and our kids.
Right. And I'm saying, but if I was listening to people who experience those types of things on a regular, who were coming, as if I was a mental health professional,
yes,
helping a parent through their grief or something, and I was like a grief counselor, I wouldn't be able to do, like, I can totally see how this comes into play really fast. All
right. We're long overdue for this break.
Okay.
So I'll take it here. We'll hit up the polls that we put up and discuss those.
Sure.
I'm coming for you tonight. I'm coming for you tonight. I'm coming for you harder than last night's erection tonight. I'm coming for you tonight. I'm coming for you tonight. I'm coming for you. Watch me bust they shit. Okay.
Okay, so based on the results of the polls and the interaction that we had on social media.
Mhm.
It seems that people were more taking my interpretation of this than the clinical one that I guess you were, I don't want to say siding with, but you were favoring in the conversation when it comes to caretakers.
Yeah, I think just because most of the resources that I found about this, the term compassion fatigue, was referring to people who experience it in their professional capacity.
Yeah, and again, we're bringing this up because of, the healthcare workers in during the pandemic.
Right.
And
Has kind of
whatnot.
brought it to the forefront. Yeah.
But it is, according to the definition, and I don't want to spend too much time repeating it. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but it can bleed over to just normal interaction with something as simple as a friend or whatever that continuously makes the same mistake but asks you advice about how to deal with the same mistake and not taking that advice. I'm not saying that's what someone submitted. Maybe they did, but that's just an example that comes off the top of my head, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, even in the first half, we acknowledge that this, I think it's sort of like a spectrum of
Right.
how you can experience this. But yeah, we did ask how many people have even heard of compassion fatigue, and it was pretty even. It was 56% said that they hadn't.
My favorite
What?
response: how many people have heard of compassion fatigue? DM, what is that? So you should have just went with no.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they were curious. So I think, though, because just based on the numbers of people who answered that they hadn't ever heard of it, and then the number of people who responded to the next question, which was, have you experienced it?
Yeah.
I think a bunch of people went and Googled it because they
Okay.
didn't know what it was, because then they answered yes to the next question that they've experienced it.
Okay.
So even people who hadn't previously heard of the term, like we hadn't, they must have gone and looked it up and then came back and was like, oh shit, yeah, that's me.
Gotcha. All right. So there was an imbalance, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, most people hadn't heard of it before, but then I think a lot of those same people realized that this definitely applied to them and they had experienced this in some form, whether professional or personal. Because yes, even though more people said they hadn't heard of it, 77% of people who responded said that they had experienced it.
Right.
So the vast majority. We then asked how many, or if you've experienced it, was it in your professional or personal capacity? And we gave some examples of like professional, meaning you're like a therapist or a healthcare worker.
Yeah.
Or personal, meaning like you're a caretaker of like an elderly relative, or, just
Friendships.
friendship. Yeah. Like supporting friends or family who have experienced trauma or something like that. And 80% said it was in their personal capacity.
Yeah.
So yes.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's that uncommon.
No, I don't. But I also think just as a numbers game, like less people are healthcare professionals. Like,
Yes. But you're right. It's really hard in my profession to have compassion fatigue because you don't
professionally,
you don't need to have compassion in my profession.
Right.
But I mean, you do, but it's not required.
I know what you mean.
You can be a dick.
You're not taking care of someone
Yes.
or something.
I do think it would be weird to me if someone didn't experience a level of this with their friends when it comes to watching them make poor choices despite having some sort of sit down or heart to heart saying, advising against it.
Right.
I feel like that's common
I think it's very common.
in relationships.
Yeah.
And then having the attitude, well, fuck you then, kind of thing. I don't care anymore.
Well, again, so this is where I don't think it's like a conscious decision. I mean, I guess it can be.
No, that's how you end up feeling.
Right, but I don't necessarily think that. Well, maybe that is like a symptom or like one manifestation of compassion fatigue. But I think it can also just take the form of you personally start to just shut down because you're
Yes.
so exhausted from caring so much about this person who's not doing anything to help themselves.
We're running in circles from the first part. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I think that was what we were just talking about, was the most common response we got when we asked people to share their experience, a little more about their experience, if they said that they had experienced it. And everyone who responded gave examples of their personal experience. So I'm a little bummed that we didn't get anyone from the healthcare profession to speak to this because, obviously we don't know what the fuck we're talking about, but
Well, they're too busy working.
right, exactly. That's true.
They don't have time to
Yeah, right
participate
now
in
they're
our
too
polls.
busy probably experiencing their compassion
Yes.
fatigue to talk to anybody about it.
Oh, hold on. I just want to interject here. I want to walk something back from
Okay.
the first half of the episode. When I suggested people that are unvaccinated should wait, I mean people that are unvaccinated by choice. I don't think
Well,
people that are
obviously.
unable to be vaccinated should have to wait at a hospital. If that's beyond if they
course.
legitimate, but that's a small number of people
Yeah, it's
in the
children
grand
under 5.
total, or like
Or-
people with autoimmune disease or whatever.
I think even they are, they actually are getting more doses of the vaccine.
Sure. There's a very, very small portion of the population that have something going on in which their doctors, legitimate doctors, are saying, I don't know if you should get this
Sure.
yet. They're very, very, very small compared to the large amount of people in the unvaccinated community that are just like, nope,
Right.
not for me.
Right.
Those types of people are that I'm saying, if you don't trust the science, you don't trust the doctors that are going to treat you. You can wait. That's my attitude. It's never going to happen. But I just wanted to further explain, just in case someone's listening that's saying, I want to get vaccinated, but my doctor's advising me not to. Should I have to wait? No, you shouldn't. You should be able to get in with the people that are vaccinated.
Okay.
You should have that consideration. In
And
fact,
children-
you should be in front of the line.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know?
If you legitimately fall into that category,
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So,
But I digress again.
yeah.
I just wanted to clear it up because someone's going to listen
Yeah.
and say, hey, I have this super rare disease. Fuck you.
Right.
And now I'm a dick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think the most common response that was talking about, friendships and just your interactions with people, either when it's the situation that you just described of like giving the same advice over and over again just for that person to continuously make bad choices and then continuously coming to you for sympathy. And you're kind of like, well, I already told you what I thought and you blew me off. So why is this conversation happening again?
Yeah, I would feel it would have to be the same issue.
Yeah. Well, maybe not. I feel like if I had someone, I don't think I can think of a time when I've had this experience, but I'm imagining that if there was someone in my life who continuously came to me for advice or support over a variety of issues, and every time I gave them advice or told them what I thought would be the best course of action, and if every time they just did the opposite, I'd be like, why do you keep coming to me when you never do what I suggest?
Yeah.
And then it ends up working out poorly for you. And then you come to me again for sympathy. Like, I feel like that could get old real fast, even if it wasn't the same issue every time.
Right.
The other kind of like friendship angle that this took was the example of, and we've talked about this in our friendships after having kids episode. I feel like this is pretty related to that topic. Of a person who feels like they're always the one to reach out. And I guess like that can happen even when there's not like one friend has kids and the other doesn't. I think
Moving
they're
out
just,
or whatever, moving away to a different place.
yeah, or they're just, I feel like, I know I have relationships in my life where I'm usually the one to initiate the interaction. Like I'm usually the one checking in on the other person, and it's not, I think over time I've had to just come to terms with that. There are certain people in my life who that's just how they are.
Yeah.
They don't generally initiate things, and I'm the one who has to kind of check in and keep the ball rolling. And I think that can get exhausting, and it's hard not to take it personally. I think you just said like eventually I just kind of came to terms with it, and I'm okay with it, and I accept it. But I can understand completely how that can be can lead to a form of compassion fatigue if you really, really care about this person. And it seems like they're not like
Putting in the effort.
Yeah, pulling their weight. And especially if your relationship hasn't always been that way. I think the examples that I'm thinking of in my head, it's kind of how these are people that have been in my life for a very long time, and it's kind of always how it's been. So maybe that's why it doesn't bother me as much. But I feel like if it was someone who we used to be pretty on equal footing with how often we checked in on each other, and then all of a sudden it dropped off, maybe because that person had kids or got married or moved away, or there was like some life event that happened that made them stop reaching out to me, and I felt like it was only me putting in the effort, can totally see how it would be really, really exhausting to try to be the only one doing that.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's invalid. It's certainly valid. I haven't experienced that, so I can't really relate to it too much. I'm sure there are people, maybe, in my life that I used to be close with that are like, oh yeah, asshole, that's you. You know, you don't reach out to me. I'm the one that's putting in the, if that's the case, I'm sorry. And to me, it's more, I can only speak for myself. It's more of an unawareness of, oh fuck, like I didn't know this bothered you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I'm just very busy all the time with 2 children and working full time. And I'm not saying this is, the reason for whoever said that. Like, I'm not, your feelings on this are very, very valid. It's more that I've never had to be in a position where I feel like my friends aren't pushing their weight when it comes to the relationship, right? And there are times with my best friend that we don't talk for a couple of days or maybe even a week.
Oh God, a couple days.
Well, maybe
saying
a
there
week.
are friends that I've gone years without talking to, and then we pick up right where we left
I'm
off.
saying this is my best friend.
Yeah.
This is my ace in the hole. That's not you. And
Good save.
it's like, oh, we just pick right up.
Right.
There's an understood element to our
Yes.
friendship.
I was going to say that. So that's the other thing I think that makes a difference. It's like if this is just kind of the understanding of where your relationship is in the moment. And I also think friendships and these types of relationships have their seasons. Like I feel like when people are in certain stages of their life, like obviously like for us right now, we have a new baby and a toddler and we both work full time and things are really hard right now for us to keep up with friendships
even
in the
pandemic
same
aside.
even pandemic aside.
Going out in the winter.
Right. I know. Yes. The middle of
New
winter.
England, and with a newborn and
Right.
a 3-year-old.
Right.
Like,
There are just certain times, and I feel like people, it's important to also have grace for people when they're in those types of situations. Like it might be annoying and it might be off-putting or feel exhausting to feel like you're the only person putting in the effort. But I think if it's a temporary kind of short period of time when there's some big adjustment going on or like there's something significant happening in the other person's life, I think you should have some grace for that. And if you're really close to them, if it's someone that you're, like a best friend or a family member, you'll probably pick right back up where you left off when that season ends.
yeah.
But if that's happening repeatedly over a very long period of time, I totally understand how that would be exhausting.
We're also deliberating on whether or not this is more than just conversation, right? So you don't know what you don't know. So if someone has a brand new job opportunity and it involves a lot of time and, attention, the person that on the other side of that friendship that's not participating in that life event doesn't know. Right? It knows that this person is busier, but doesn't know the minutia, doesn't know the nuances, what's involved with this new job, what's involved, and how much time this really takes my mental space. You don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
However, I am sympathetic of we live in a time where communication is literally at our fingertips through our thumbs, really.
Mm-hmm.
You can text.
Yeah, so the only pushback I have to that is because I am notorious for this.
You're just a shitty texter.
I'm horrible. Because I read a text or it comes through when I'm busy and I'll read it and then either I'll think I responded in my head or I will start typing out a response and then get distracted and never finish it and forget that I started texting it.
Yeah, it's an
or
inside
not
joke.
realize that I didn't hit send. Yes, and everyone
With
knows
my
this.
friend.
Yes,
And yeah.
yes, and multiple of my friends they know this. Like
Yeah.
they know this about me. Or I will just. I think there are points where I'm just like, even though it seems really easy to send a text, or it seems like communication's at our fingertips, or it doesn't take a long time. Sometimes I just don't have the energy. I just literally, it's not that I don't have the time. I might be sitting on the couch for 2 hours, but I just might not be in a space where I feel like having a conversation or like I have the energy to put into a conversation.
Can't get there. I can't.
Because you're attached to
Sorry.
your phone.
I can get there when it comes to a conversation. There are many times I'm getting texts and there's a conversation coming through. I'm just like, oh, fuck. I hate
But
inadvertent
you
conversations.
can't help yourself. You always read it and respond immediately.
Yes, because
and
I don't
know
wanna be
why
rude.
you do that to yourself.
Well, hold on. I can't get there because last night I hadn't talked to my best friend in a couple days, so I just sent him a text and I said, "I love you, bro. Just wanted to tell you."
Yeah, that's great.
And
you guys have that
and that was it.
relationship.
It was just he looked at it, he hearted it, and that was it. I didn't want to have a conversation.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome. But my best friend and I, we go like, and she's in a very similar situation as I am with 2 young kids, and she's working all the time, and it's just we go months sometimes without talking, and it's no hard feelings.
But that's a situation where you're both in similar circumstances.
Exactly. That does make a
think
difference.
what this person is saying is they're at different circumstances in their life, and that's what the frustration is.
Right.
And I don't think it's a lack of effort when it comes to the person that submitted. I don't know anything about the situation, so I don't want to speculate, but I'm sure the effort is there, and I agree it can get tiring, and that's with any relationship.
Yeah.
Really, especially like in a marriage, if you're the only one, like if you were like, I don't give a fuck, I don't care, like do whatever you want. Hey, I figured we can do this date night. Nope, I don't care. Hey, I figured like, hey, we can watch this movie together. No, I'm going to bed.
Or even just
you don't
something
do
as
this.
simple as like
I'm saying if you did, it would
another
be
good save. Yeah,
No, it's true.
I know, but even just as simple as checking in and being like, "How was your day? How are things going?" Like
sometimes we don't have time.
I'm not. This isn't on you. I'm saying in this situation of the person who submitted this, saying it's not even that. I don't even think it's that. The friend was like not making plans or whatever. It's just
no. I was trying to see how this would work in a marriage. That's all.
Right.
In
But
a friendship, it's as easy as just checking in.
Yeah, like you just
or
said
sending
you do
an
with your
email
best friend.
Saying so you can avoid the back and forth if you just send an email saying.
I never email my friends.
No, I know. I'm just saying if you legitimately are strapped for time, and you find yourself with 10 minutes to spare, and that's not long enough to have a conversation.
I guess it's just I'm just playing devil's advocate in the sense that it does take, even if you like literally have the time, like you have 10 minutes, it's sometimes you just don't have the energy, or I'm just not in the right space to even like
I get it.
Type out a text message or an email or whatever. Like it's just, or I only have 10 minutes and I have like 7 different things that I could do with that 10 minutes.
And again, when it comes to friendships, most of your friends
are in similar situations.
So it's understood across the board.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's definitely challenging when you're at different places in your life, and I have sympathy for both sides.
Yeah. A friend of mine this past fall announced he was having a baby girl, and I hadn't talked to this person, I think, since our wedding.
Yeah.
And I called him to congratulate, and I said, it's been a minute. And he was, it's all good, Right. And I was talking to him, and I said, look, I have, I think our second child was born at this point. So I said, I have 2 kids. It's really difficult, coupled this with the pandemic. It's just, my hands were full. It's not that I forgot about you or didn't care. It's just, it usually came down to, it's fine. And
life happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, he's not in or wasn't in the same circumstance.
Right. I mean, I have a friend who I didn't talk to for years, not because of any animosity or anything. I think she did move away for a while. She was all over the place. But anyway.
You don't even fucking know.
Yeah, I don't even remember. It was hard to keep track of for a while, and we were at very different places in our life because of that. And then she fucking showed up to my bachelorette party, and it was like no time had passed.
Oh, yeah. She moved away.
Yeah. But she came to my bachelorette party, which was like a thing. It was like a weekend in Montreal. Yeah. And it was literally
swinging
like
dicks.
Yeah.
Just
literally.
swinging
that
dicks.
happened. No, but it was like no time had passed. We picked right back up where we left off, and I was so happy she was there.
What the fuck is she gonna do? Hold a grudge at your bachelor?
No,
like, not a
No, I'm saying to just even be there, to even do something like that with someone who you haven't spoken to in like 3 years. I mean, it just speaks to the type of friendship we had. But I think it's just a different dynamic in every situation.
I'm not trying to minimize this, the comment and the submission here.
No, not at all. It's very valid.
yes. I don't know the situation, so I guess unsolicited advice here. Worry about how you feel first. Like, don't try to feel like you have to maintain a relationship just because of the history. If it's really bothering you, you got to look out for you.
Yeah, I feel like, so I was thinking about this comment in this situation.
It's not my business. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, no, I was thinking it made me think of the times in my life when I have felt like this, or I've experienced relationships similar to this. And I was thinking we should do a whole nother episode on like just
friends,
toxic relationships in general. So
I mean, yeah,
there's a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know if I would specifically call this situation toxic, but I think it could get there.
We already have 2 toxic episodes.
Oh, God.
We should just call it single-serving relationship or single-sided relationships.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to group this into the toxic individualism and masculinity.
Okay. Yeah, those were rough.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of callback from the episode we did about maintaining friendships while parents,
definitely.
and on letting go.
Yep.
Once things, it's okay to be selfish to the point where you're saying to yourself, how is this serving me?
Mm-hmm.
With a relationship, that's a valid question. There should be something. You should have
getting something out of it.
Yeah, of course. And if you're not getting anything out of it,
well, and now we've come back to compassion fatigue, where that we actually went full circle. It happens when you're caring so much about someone else that you start to stop. You're not taking care of yourself.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So that's right. That speaks to how these types of situations that people experience on a regular basis in normal, everyday, personal life, can experience compassion fatigue. I think that's the perfect example.
All right, go on. Do we have anything else?
No, I think we had several comments, but they were all sort of related to the same type of situation.
Oh, well, what are the comments?
The friendships. Do you want me to actually read them?
Yeah. People took
the
time.
We already talked about it.
We don't want this to be a single serving thing.
Okay. I have had a hard time feeling bad for someone who knowingly made choices towards a poor outcome and then is looking for sympathy when my advice was to not make those choices.
Yeah.
So we covered that.
Yes.
The one about the situation we were talking about was pretty lengthy, so I don't think I'm going to read that.
That person was the highlight.
Yes, that was the highlight response. It was, it made me think about compassion fatigue in a way that I wasn't thinking about it before. The only other thing that came to mind, there were some people who did say that they experienced it in their professional capacity, but then didn't comment on it. So
they had to go back to work.
Right. It's true. Yeah. I mean, but there were some folks that I know don't necessarily work in the healthcare field who said they've experienced in their professional capacity. So it was really interesting. But it made me think of my own profession and, another way that maybe it's compassion fatigue, maybe it's something else. I don't really know. But I was thinking I can kind of relate to the idea of feeling, maybe it's just like discouragement. I don't really know. So I work in the natural resources field, right? So there have been times where, especially in the wake of the intense effects of climate change really ramping up and how sort of doom and gloom things feel in my field sometimes, but it's something I care about so much. Like I've dedicated my life to it, in conserving natural resources, caring for the environment, caring specifically for rare and endangered species, that it feels sometimes like the weight of the world is on my shoulders. And there are times I get to the point where I just can't, like, I just feel like I shut down. And I don't know if it's because I feel like I'm just like a drop in the bucket and I can't really make, like, when the problems are so big that you feel like you as an individual can't really move the needle. I don't know if that's just like feeling hopeless but I guess that's one of the, symptoms or, components of compassion fatigue. It's just like there are times when I feel very motivated and I feel like what I do is very, very important. And that's the majority of the time I feel that way. But I'd be lying if I said there weren't moments where I felt like, what's the point?
I mean, in the reality, it's both, right? What you're doing is really important, but you as an individual can't move the needle. Like individually, you can't fix climate change.
That's okay. Moving the needle and fixing climate change
Okay.
are two very different things.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I don't. What do you mean by move the needle?
I was interpreting your feelings towards this of am I making a huge impact, not am I making a difference. Like obviously you're making a difference, but you're not going to, change everyone's mind about.
Of course
climate change.
not. Of course
That's what
not.
I thought you were trying to say.
No. Like I know that. I mean, obviously, no single person is going to change the trajectory that we're on with climate
That's
change.
what I
Like,
mean. Yeah.
right? No, but not specifically towards climate change, but even just when I'm thinking about single species that I've worked on or doing environmental education, it can just feel like such an uphill battle.
Right.
And you could be met with so much resistance that it's like, is this even worth it? Is this even?
Yeah.
And it's like putting your whole self and putting so much passion and enthusiasm into something that can sometimes feel like it's an impossible hurdle can be extremely discouraging and kind of make me feel like I need to take a step back every once in a while.
I don't know. Maybe this is along the lines of compassion fatigue, what you're talking about, but I also don't want to confuse, and this isn't a technical term, passion fatigue compared to compassion fatigue.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I think this happened to me while I was doing the South of the Six podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously having a young child and whatnot made it difficult just to find the time to do it.
Right.
But it was also, I am just fucking tired of this. I am not into this as much as I used to be.
Yeah.
And that wasn't compassion fatigue. It was just passion fatigue.
Yeah.
I was burnt out because I was doing it all the time.
So I think I did read there. I think we talked about this in the first half that burnout and compassion fatigue are actually two distinct terms.
Yeah.
That burnout happens more gradually over time just from being exhausted. And compassion fatigue can be more acute. Like it can just come on out of like because of a specific situation or a specific like trauma or something. So I feel like for me, like I generally feel motivated and passionate and enthusiastic about what I do, but then there are just moments where it's just like it just hits you.
Yeah.
And you need to take a step back.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and it's because it's not just because I'm passionate about what I do, but because I think it encompasses the caretaking piece, because I feel like I'm caring for something. Like I'm responsible for the conservation of this specific
Gotcha.
animal or like habitat or whatever, or I'm responsible for something. So it's like it feels like caregiving in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that kind of does fall into the realm of compassion fatigue. And I bet there's a lot of professions that are not directly healthcare or, a mental health professional or something that could experience compassion fatigue in a similar way.
I wonder how many, maybe it is passion fatigue. Maybe I'm contradicting myself, but I'd be surprised to see how many sports fans go through this.
Yeah.
Just like, especially Bills fans
Yeah.
like myself or Browns fans. Just like, why the fuck do I even bother with this?
Why do I do this to myself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the Red Sox for 80 some odd years.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yep.
Why do I even bother? In a way, it is kind of compassion fatigue because you're just putting everything into
that's
it.
passion fatigue because you're not caring for someone else or something else doing that. It's just
No,
something that you
you're not
enjoy and you're
caring
passionate
for.
about.
You're not caring for it, but it's not reciprocated. It's sort of like a relationship, right? When ownership or management just cares about money, right? And seeing as though, we're getting into the weeds with this, but in sports,
You're putting your all into it, and
in sports franchises, revenue is shared, right? So the Red Sox can win the World Series and sell an insane amount of memorabilia that's split 30 ways. That profit is split 30 ways amongst all the teams. So teams like the Blue Jays at the time who didn't give a shit about winning were getting just as rich. So why bother trying to win?
Yeah, I guess.
And as a fan,
right.
I'm saying this is more than that to me.
Right, of course.
But to you, it's just a profit machine.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm forcing it. I really am.
Yeah.
But I can see how.
No, but I think that's a really interesting distinction you made between compassion and passion fatigue.
Yeah. I mean, the Bills have to win.
Like, you can love something to death. Like, you know, if you love something so much that you just, it destroys you. Like,
I mean, you see the reaction videos of fans throwing shit at TVs.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of it has to do with gambling. But
And drinking.
Yeah. But when their team loses, they just punch the TV or
Just lose it.
yeah. And you know, 10 years ago, punching a flat screen TV would have been, oh, that's $1,000. I'll just buy a new one tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, it's whatever. Just buy a better one.
Yeah.
I didn't like this one
Well,
anymore.
so I don't know how much justice we did to this topic. I mean, we're kind of thinking through it as we talked
said
about
we
it.
weren't
Yeah, no, we
experts.
were
It's
thinking
fine.
out loud. We're kind of figuring it out along with everybody who participated in the polls. A lot of other people hadn't heard of this either. So I think it was kind of interesting to dissect it and think about the different directions it could go.
Yeah. We definitely butchered it, but we butcher most topics, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
do.
pretty much.
Maybe you're the saving grace.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Well, if you would like to participate more on this topic, we invite you to do so. We when it comes to this, if there's anything that we said that needs correcting, or that you know or have experienced this firsthand, and that you're saying, you know, we don't know what we're talking about, we'd really like to hear from you.
Genuinely. Yeah.
We won't respond because we're busy.
Yeah, definitely if it's me.
Well, you're in charge of the Instagram, so
Yeah, good luck.
you'll get a response in 2 weeks.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, that person.
Yep. Or you'll just see the three dots for a while because I'll start typing and then forget.
So it does disappear.
Oh, it does?
Yes.
Oh, good.
It doesn't stay forever.
That's good because a lot of people would have
The apps have
that
caught
bubble
on.
for me.
This person fell asleep.
Yeah, they just cut onto me.
This person is pulling
Writing
a
half a message.
kofefe right now.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So if you want to hit us up, you can.
Yeah, we're on Instagram at While She's Napping. On Facebook.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's
No,
pretty much. I
that's
mean,
it.
yeah,
That's
you're
it.
right.
Just
I mean,
hit us
the
up.
email.
Yes.
We're there on email.
I have not checked that in a long time.
Well, I'll get the notification.
New season Instagram.
Okay, we're just on Instagram
That's it.
at While She's Napping. That makes
Yeah.
it easy.
Season 2. Maybe we'll investigate that single-sided friendship thing for next
more.
episode. But until then, go Bills.
Yep. Good luck tomorrow.
Yes, you will know the result when this is issued.
That's right.
So, go Bills. Take care.
Bye.